Welcome back into another episode of the Daft on Draft podcast presented by FanDuel. James and I are finishing summer scouting today. It feels like a long time coming. We've gone through 9 players at every position, 3 players a day, 3 episodes a week, but going position by the week. And so we're talking about our last 3 safeties here. Before we get into that episode, though, I do want to do a little bit of Daft on Draft housekeeping here. Starting this season, I am doing a Monday morning hangover show. So there'll be a 5th episode a week, and a kind of a specialized episode where I'm going to try to do like a PTI style, sidebar and just go topic by topic. I've got guests lined up to do a trench player of the week. I've got another guest lined up to do like a fantasy corner update of the week, kind of 5 to 7 minute segments there broken up throughout it as well. Just recapping everything that happened from an NFL draft perspective, both at the NFL level and at the college level from the weekend before. I'm going to drop that first episode this coming Monday, though, as kind of an introduction to the show. I'm going to have my fantasy guest on and my trench player of the week guest on to kind of just give an introduction as well and preview kind of what to expect from them. So I'm really excited about this Monday morning hangover episode and show that's going to come out this season. We do have week 0 coming up next weekend, so that's why I want to drop that introductory episode on Monday to just get into the flow of it. Kind of like a pilot episode, so to speak. A little more housekeeping on daftondraft.football, my Substack, the headquarters of this bad boy. I did drop a Greg Johnson film room, who is my highest graded offensive lineman in this class. Minnesota guard Greg Johnson. So go check that out. I will also have, since we're finished summer scouting now, my guys piece dropping today, the same day this episode comes out, where I'm going to highlight one player at every position that I like more than consensus, that I think has a chance to really explode onto the scene this year. And so I'm really excited to get that piece out there as well. Again, on that Substack, $9 a month, $90 for the year. That's all I'm asking for access to what will end up being 4 to 5 pieces a week in season. So I'm really excited about year 2 of this paid model. I saw exponential growth in the first year, so I'm really hoping to continue this thing on the upward trajectory here, and potentially to the point where I can even launch an entire college football wing of my site to just hire somebody to break down college football and produce college football specific content. But that's all I've got in terms of housekeeping. So let's get in. Let's talk about Oregon's Koi Perich, Alabama's Bray Hubbard, and Notre Dame's Adon Shuler. All right, the last episode of Summer Scouting, James. We've made it this far. We have 1 episode to go. We're talking 3 more safeties here. We are talking Oregon's Koi Perich, Alabama's Bray Hubbard, and Notre Dame's Adon Shuler. James, next week, man, we are talking week 0 stuff, probably some college football bold predictions. We have actual football slate to talk about here.
Yeah, I was watching finally some live football. Brentwood Academy, where I went to school, they were playing Baylor in high school, a couple like nationally ranked teams. So yeah, really approaching football season, and week 0 right around the corner.
Yeah, I can't say I spend much time watching high school football back home where I'm from. I had a graduating class of like 130, and the last time they made the playoffs was when I was a senior in 2011 or 2010. It would have been the 2010 season. Maybe they made it since then. And like the claim to fame from my high school right now is that there's a wide receiver for the University of Washington who went to Ohio State, was recruited by Ohio State, didn't play as a true freshman, and transferred to Washington. So that's like the claim to fame to my high school football right now, is that we've got a guy playing Power 4 football, but I think he might be a little bit buried on the depth chart at Washington too.
I was watching. They've got a Baylor who my school was playing. They've got a 5-star running back who's going to Tennessee, David Gabriel George. He's like, he chose between Ohio State. I think he's like the highest paid running back recruit ever. The he's guy. Absurd. Yeah. Best high school running back I've ever seen.
His burst is insane. His transition, it's insane. Yeah. The guy I went to high school with is like in the 4th row of Washington's depth chart at the wide receiver position. So I don't think I'm going to be watching much of him. He's only a redshirt freshman, though. But all right, safeties. Again, we're talking Koi Perich, Bray Hubbard, Adon Shuler, consensus order on the early consensus board, and I'm pretty sure this is just based purely off of vibes right now, and people mocking off of vibes, and probably some college football 26, 27 rankings, is Koi Perich, Bray Hubbard, Adon Shuler in that order. we're going to kick it off with Koi Perich. And just to preface this conversation, it might be a long one because this is probably, I think James and I agree, probably the worst safety of the 9 that we've watched of this group and is getting a lot of consensus love. So let's just kick it off there, James. Yeah, I'll let you rip lead off here on this one.
Yeah, so you might before you watch him like draw some parallels to Dylan Thieneman. You know, Oregon has turned into like rehab for white safeties coming off of a down year. But I don't think that he's anywhere near that level of talent. I didn't watch his offensive tape, so maybe there's something on that side of the ball. But I do think he's a pretty decent athlete in terms of straight line speed. You know, I took me 3 games to really find a good play from him, but he Northwestern game, he had a great chase down, forced fumble to save a touchdown. But yeah, really disappointed with Koi Perich, like pretty much across the board. The tackling is brutal. 23 missed tackles last year. There's a clear lack of physicality and kind of shying away from contact. Especially if he's got to like fight through a block to make a tackle. He's more someone that's just gonna like kind of hang out on the perimeter and hope that the rest of the team rallies and finishes the play. Doesn't really process things at a quick enough speed on the back end. And I think the transitions are a little bit clunky. So yeah, I had a late 6th on Koi Perich, and that might be a little bit going easy on him, to be honest.
Yeah, when I watched Koi Perich, I got a couple games in and was like, do I just need to like watch the wide receiver reps and see if this is just a player who needs to go play wide receiver? Because I had some pretty similar thoughts on Koi Perich. You know, like right off the rip, the first 3 notes I have are bad angles and downhill pursuit, kind of a slow trigger too to get downhill. Extremely contact averse. In the open field, it gets really sloppy. The Oregon game, it's just him and I think is it Noah Whittington? Is that the running back from Jordan Whittington? I get him mixed up with the Texas
No, I
running
think
back
it's
who plays for the
Noah.
Rams.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's Noah.
get the name mixed up with the guy who plays for the Rams now from Texas. Um, and there was probably a 10-yard gap where he was the last man between Whittington in the end zone, and he gets absolutely stood up, even like still 5 or 6 yards from contact, like completely turned around. Um, like a really miserable open field tackler. Um, the good notes that I have is I thought he had good sideline to sideline speed when he was able to track sideline or ball carriers to the boundary and beat them to the boundary. And I think that translated to some burst over the top as well. There were reps where I thought he was kind of a short strider and it looked like he was in mud a little bit, still trying to get range over the top. But I do think that like overall initial burst is there. Does have some alignment versatility as well, although like um, when I see him in these different alignments, though, I kind of think that he's more of a nickel than anything else. Like I don't see a ton of comfort when he is playing over the top. I see like the zone IQ getting really rough. I think he's a guy who sticks purely to his assignments. Like if I'm supposed to play hook curl, I'm gonna play hook curl, but doesn't have a good feel for like what is going on around him while he's playing hook
Right.
curl, and is just looking for receivers who are crossing his face or coming into his zone rather than being able to feel out concepts, patterns that might be buzzing peripherally behind his ear and feeling those out. Um, uh, I think it takes him an added step to kind of flip his hips and get back downhill. For being only 6 foot, I thought he played pretty high cut. Like he's a high cut 6 foot player. So like I think the transitions are a little rough. You mentioned the block deconstruction is just like the one time you'll see him make tackles as if there's like 1 or 2 guys who have arms on the ball carrier and he'll come in and
Right.
dog pile or try to
Yeah, yeah,
finish
yeah.
the play with them. Um, I think like just the most concerning part though is like if I'm playing a safety, even in these like split high looks, like these 2 high looks, and you're playing quarters, and you're seeing number 1 kind of run across or across the field, and you're still getting depth. It's like there's no need. There's nobody threatening on your side of the field anymore. But it doesn't really feel like he has that feel to kind of like play jazz in the coverage responsibilities that he has. And what I mean by that is like Jazz has this ability to hit a note, but kind of feel out the notes around the note and improvise a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, if they're running boot away from you, or number one on your side is clearly running a deep crosser or a deep dig, there's no reason for you to continue to get back, like to get in back that. Like, step up, match that last receiver, come across the field with him. Like, I didn't see any sort of feel from him in that when he's playing in any single high, too high look. Yeah, man. I think he's got like okay man coverage skills on tight ends when he is kind of robbering underneath or like matching underneath, but and I think he's probably got the athleticism to carry. I didn't see any reps where he was carrying a tight end up the
He
seam.
I went back and watched his interceptions and pass breakups from 2024, and there are some nice everything. All the nice reps are like single coverage, running with Virginia Tech game, ran with a tight end, like 35 yards down the field. He was face guarding, but timed his hands perfectly. He got a nice pass breakup. And then there was like I think the UCLA interception, really nice, like downhill burst, just on a hook route, like in single coverage. But I didn't think the interceptions were very high quality or like super impressive. And it was all single coverage, like one-on-one. So you might be onto something as far as him being more of a nickel than a safety.
And how would you evaluate like his ball tracking skills, his ability to locate the football deep down the field?
Trying to think about. Oh, so yeah, there was that Ohio State, or maybe I'm thinking of a different game. I didn't, as far as like turning and locating the ball, I didn't see any of that.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't really either. So I didn't know if you had seen anything that I hadn't, but there aren't a lot of reps on range or on tape where he is like turning and running over the top to try
Right.
to cover like vertical threats from a deep alignment. I just think he's probably a nickel, but even then, nickels are asked so much to fit the run and to sling downhill and sling inside, and I think he'd be a complete liability from the box because I don't think that he processes information at a super high level and digests it at a super high level, and it gets really muddy for him, both in zone coverage and from the box in terms of run fits. So like, uh, we'll see what happens at Oregon this year, but I think that a lot of the Koi Perich hype might have come from him wearing the double colored jersey at Minnesota and being like this kind of like vibe farmed player of like, oh, he's a two-way player, and that led to like a really high college football 26 and 27 rating. And but like, is it going to translate to NFL traits and translate to college football production at some point?
He was on all the lists of like from like a couple years ago of like, oh, the 2027 draft class is going to be sick.
Yeah.
Dylan Stewart, Jeremiah Smith, Koi Parrish. Like I always saw him get included in those. And I don't really think the tape matches up. I do wonder if he was injured last year. Maybe that was because like I just watched a cut up of his 2024 tape, but looking at his numbers, I mean, his missed tackle rate was 50% of what it was last year. 10.9% in 2024, 21.5 in 2025. Had like way more. I mean, played half as many run defense snaps and had the same number of run stops, pretty much. So like maybe him kind of pulling away from contact, that could be like he's got a shoulder injury or something like that. So I'll definitely, I mean, I'll be watching Oregon every week, so I'll be aware of what's going on with him. But I'll keep an open mind because there is a chance I think that he was maybe injured or dealing with something.
Yeah, I think that's hopeful because, like, again, our goal on this podcast isn't to come in here and be like, yeah, but it's summer scouting. We got to talk about what we see. Moving on to Bray Hubbard. So, Bray Hubbard, interesting player. I think in his specific role and when he's utilized at his best, he's a very good football player. Where I think that he is utilized best is when he is dropping into a low hole in coverage and when he's in the box kind of fitting the run.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I think he's a good tackler. Like he is a CTE crash dummy demon when he is in that role where he can just fly downhill and get boundary to, or sideline to sideline, and trigger downhill towards the boundary. Um, Outside of that, I think I saw a pretty ordinary athlete, ordinary transitions, ordinary range. The man coverage skills aren't great, like because I don't think that he can kind of flip his hips and transition well enough to carry. And I think the long speed, I would probably have him at like a 4.56 to 4.58 range 40. Is it kind of what I would estimate him? I don't know if you saw similar to that as well. I didn't see an overly like explosive athlete.
So I had him. I do 0 to 100 ratings. 50 is average for a draft prospect. I had him with a 61 speed, which is in between Jelani McDonald and Zach Lutmer. I had him 67 explosiveness. So he's like kind of like third or fourth worst out of the 9 safeties that I've evaluated. I think he's like a capable athlete, but nothing special, especially like once you expand the field and ask him to cover over the top.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't see that top end speed over the top either, but I did see some pretty good anticipation, and I think he's a smooth strider. So like it's not necessarily that he's straining over the top. I just don't think he has that top gear. I think the zone coverage again as a low hole defender is good. Not much outside of that. He's not afraid to punch above his weight class either. So when it comes to deconstructing blocks or even like taking on like climbing guards, he's not afraid to punch up a weight class there. In the run game, he will stand his ground in some off-man catch tech, but I think that's like almost exclusively if he can then like match on a short, like a shallow cross or a slant or something like that. If it's like more of a vertical route, it is a little bit more sticky for him to stay in phase and carry in man coverage. But again, the eyes in zone, the instincts in zone, when he is playing over the top, he knows how to get his eyes to backside post. He knows how to carry. He knows how to peel off. He knows how to feel around him. So I think he's a high IQ player. But I think the overall tools in the skill set, I do see him more of that, like in NFL defense are running these 3 safety sets quite a bit now. But I do think he can play split safety, or I do think in these 3 safety sets, he can be that guy who comes on the field and allows one of those other safeties to kick in the nickel, and he can come down and play strong. Or he could even play from the box and maybe a nickel a little bit on some earlier downs. But I just kind of saw him as like more of an undersized linebacker. I didn't think the feet were super fiery and his back pedal. That's kind of where I'm at with Bray Hubbard. But I think in a really niche role, he can fill that very niche role. And that's where it gets tricky and why I switched my grading scale from round grades to kind of NFL role, like developmental player, NFL backup, or sub package player, high quality starter. I think that Hubbard fits this like backup / sub package player role very, very well, because I do think there's ways to get him on the field and for him to be very effective on the field. And why I don't see that, like, have a hard time translating that to round grade then is because, like, I've seen safeties who I think have this specialized role, but a team really needs that safety to do that one particular thing, and they're comfortable taking that guy in the 2nd round. There are other teams who might say that for that role, I'm not taking him to like the 4th round. So it's like it's one of those things where it's like I could easily see him going in the 2nd round. I could easily see him going in like the 4th or 5th round.
Yeah. I had a early 3rd on him. He's just outside my top 50 at 54th overall. I really like Bray Hubbard, but like you said, the role is a little bit specialized. I see him. I think he could definitely be a good starter. I see him as like a Chuck Clark type. Just outstanding physicality and run support. 22 run stops in 2025, which was 6th among FBS safeties. You see him torpedo into pullers and wreck the blocking scheme. Really powerful upper body to punch and discard blocks. And then a ferocious tackler, elite finishing strength, great pursuit motor from the backside. The stopping power is tremendous. He completely extinguishes forward momentum on contact. Had four forced fumbles over the last 2 seasons, along with really good ball production as well. So love him as a tackler, as a run stopper and like defending screens and any kind of underneath pass. And then I think in zone coverage, the instincts and the pattern recognition in like spot drop zone from the hook curl is really good. Reads the quarterback's eyes, feels route development with his back to the passing concept, which is always something that I look for. And then collapses underneath zone windows, delivers booming hits to dislodge the ball. The range and explosiveness to cover ground on the back end is not really there. I think that, sometimes the eye discipline is a little bit inconsistent. You'll see savvy quarterbacks that can look him off and kind of like divert his drive angle away from the throw. So playing with a little bit more eye balance, I think, will be really important. And then also he will get lulled into abandoning his assignment by backfield action. There was a slide route against Georgia in the conference championship where he gave up a touchdown that he left uncovered. And then I think that when it comes to like running vertical, I think the top speed is average, but I do think the vertical transitions are pretty good. I see him run step for step with tight ends down the sideline, but I think asking him to mirror slot receivers on an island would probably be a little bit too much. He also doesn't have a lot of experience in press man, but really good size. I don't question his ability to like develop in that area with some more experience.
Yeah, so I have Hubbard 77th on my board with a future starter dash rotational grade right now. So the way my scale works is there's blue chip talent, high end starter, good starter, future starter / backup, or future starter / rotational player, then sub package backup, developmental practice squad, NFL reject are kind of the tiers that I have. And so he fits right in that future starter / rotational player for me. And that cuts off at like 82 on my board, where I start to peel back a little bit there and then get into sub package backup players and at like 83 on my current board, which is the summer board. It'll get a little more details in that once I get into the season. But that's kind of where I view Hubbard as well. Good player, very specialized player. And then again, a potential future starter in like a too high split look. So yeah, good player overall. And that will take us into Adon Shuler. Before we do that, I just want to touch on some FanDuel odds here real fast. All three of these teams, Oregon, or Notre Dame, Oregon, and Alabama, both sit with 2,500 plus or higher national championship odds. Alabama, honestly, this is the lowest. That's odd for once in our lifetime. They're not in the top 10 of odds, but Notre Dame is 2, Oregon 3. Again, this is the second coming up here, the second Notre Dame safety we've talked about. So their defense is projected to carry them, and we'll talk about Adon Shuler here now. Another foundational piece of that Notre Dame defense. James, I enjoyed Adon Shuler quite a bit, but I thought like a lot of the reps were like, oh, and like if you built a highlight reel at it for Adon Shuler, you're like, yeah, this is one of the best safeties in the class. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Adon Shuler.
Yeah, I like Adon Shuler a decent amount. Early 5th round grade. He is just outside of my top 100. Really, I think he's a better college football player than he is an NFL draft prospect, but I do think he can play, find a role in the NFL. Overall, like just an unremarkable athlete, doesn't have elite measurables or physical tools, although I think he is, adequate in terms of movement skills, pretty good fluidity to mirror tight ends in single coverage. The downhill transitions and the click and close, I think is pretty efficient out of his pedal. And then, in coverage, especially, I think the play strength was adequate. He's pretty like densely built, 5'11 and a half, 205. So solid physical makeup. In zone coverage, he is a really quick processor, decisive trigger, natural feel for leverage and spacing, does a good job of sorting through backfield action. I consistently see with linebackers and safeties, they're reading route distribution just a beat late. They're letting their assignment get leverage out to the flat, and they're giving up, 8-9 yard chunk plays. Adon Shuler is really snappy with his reads, doesn't let his assignment leak out to the seam or the flat, um, doesn't have outstanding range to defend the sidelines from single field. Another player that will occasionally misjudge his drive angles and kind of whiff on some playmaking opportunities over the middle of the field. But when he lines it up correctly, he can hammer in breaking routes as the poach safety. He had that pass breakup against Pittsburgh that was pretty textbook. Um, in run support, I think that he definitely plays with confidence and no fear of contact. Really quick processor in run support. Flashed some good physicality to take on pullers, but that was only in the Navy game, and I would want to see that against better competition before I was firm on that being a strength. Because overall, I think that he does a really good job of swerving around blocks and kind of finding an efficient path to the football. But when it comes to holding his ground against perimeter blocks, trying to cleanly stack and shed, I didn't see that on his tape. And then I think that I did like to see that he was really comfortable turning and locating the ball down the field. Can also face guard and read the receiver, play the ball with really good timing. But bigger tight ends at the catch point can kind of beat him above the rim. I think USC, he got mogged in the back corner for a touchdown. So it could be a matchup issue in the red zone. Also, a pretty reckless tackler, nowhere near like Ty Benefield or Koi Perich, but 19.6% career missed tackle rate. Has a bad habit of just launching and diving at the legs, and has a hard time making quick reactive adjustments to mirror sharp cuts. The tackle radius is also below average. So yeah, he's like an early 5th round player, just kind of a C plus to B minus across the board.
Yeah, that's kind of where I have him as well. I have him probably in that same tiers like a Ty Benefield, which I think Ty Benefield's got a much higher ceiling if he can clean up quite a bit of stuff. Um, what I saw from Adon Shuler is a really scrappy football player. Like he runs the alley like a bat out of hell when he's coming downhill, and so you love to see that. And he's even scrappy when he's trying to deconstruct blocks, but I do think that he's just physically overmatched at times, even when he's trying to deconstruct blocks. Um, he's at his best when he can just be a loose cannon and immediately trigger up the ball. Um, I think he processes his information well, but he has some of those cat chasing a laser pointer moments, both in zone coverage and as a run defender. I think where his eyes can get a little sticky, his eyes can get a little jumpy. Based on what he's seeing in front of him. Yeah, the USC game against Lake McCree was a pretty big red flag in terms of being able to play physically at the catch point and being able to play physically at the top of routes. I think in zone coverage, when he does drop to the low hole, he won't let any receiver cross his face, which is a really positive sign. Like he's not afraid to jump in and bump receivers off of their landmarks and reroute them. I think he's strong in catch tech as well. So like there are elements of his game where he plays scrappy, he plays physically. And so like at the end of the day, like this is going to be a high motor player. I think he might have to earn his way onto the field in special teams first at the NFL level, but I think he has that mentality. He had a block punt last year as well. He plays on punt and field goal block at Notre Dame. So I do think that might be a way to get him on the field a little bit earlier at the NFL level. I do think that like there is a pathway for him to get on the field. Uh, Maybe another one of those guys that just might have to play nickel though, because I do think that there are some fun catch tech stuff from the nickel. But I don't necessarily see the range over the top. He's a really short strider. Like his stride length is extremely shallow, and I think that limits the amount of ground that he can cover over the top. The transitions are also a little clunky. There's a false step coming out of his trigger. It takes him a little bit to get his hips turned over the top, hips flipped. So just a little bit of clunky change of direction skills. both of his interceptions were thrown right into his lap as well. So I don't know if I necessarily see like high end ball skills, although the ability to find the ball deep down the field is there. There was a game. What game was that I watched though, where it was along the left boundary. It was a deep ball that he couldn't get. Couldn't get his head around, and probably could have gotten called for pass interference. They didn't end up calling it, but I don't remember exactly what game that was. But there's a deep ball down the left sideline that he struggled to find the football on. So I do think that the ball tracking is maybe a little bit hit or miss there as well. So probably be a little bit lower on that than you on that one. But again, I especially at the college level and on a defense like Notre Dame's, like I want guys who are going to go in there and who are going to scrap. And I think that Adon Shuler is that to the nth degree. He's just a little bit physically outmatched in pretty much any phase of the game where that requires a little bit of physicality.
Yeah, I need to go. Last thing that I need to do is go through and do like a special team, not watch all their special teams tape, but go find all the guys that are special teams demons and give them a little bump, because I was not paying attention to that in summer scouting unless it like just popped off the screen.
Right. Yeah, that's usually end of the year. Like if we draft this guy, can we get something out of him day one? Like Cam Mitchell, the corner out of Notre Dame, was a fourth or fifth round pick of the Browns, and then like that was his thing. He played like 4.
Cam Hart.
Cam Mitchell, the Northwestern corner. Northwestern.
Oh.
Did I say Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Yeah. I meant Northwestern. Yeah, he played like 400 total snaps
Right.
special teams at college. It's like, okay, you can at least get him out there. I think he's with the Colts now. He's kind of bouncing around, but he's hanging around. But yeah, man, that's what we've got on summer scouting for safeties. Anything you want to add on the class as a whole before we get out of here?
I can share my screen and we can look at the
yeah, let's do that.
Look at the class here. I have it shared. There you go.
All right. Let me peel. Oops. Let me peel our. Oh, geez, I'm struggling. Where did it go? Okay, there it is. And then let me peel this off. There we go. That's what I wanted to do.
All right. So for those listening on audio form, my rankings of the guys that I've watched, Tay Johnson with a first-round grade. Then I've got KJ Bolden, Jalen McClain, Zach Lutmer, Jelani McDonald with second-round grades. Bray Hubbard, Ty Benefield in the third round, nothing in the fourth round. Adon Shuler with a fifth-round grade. And then later down the board, I've got Koi Perich, Earl Little Jr. out of Ohio State, who I need to, if I have time, catch up on some of his end-of-the-season tape, a transfer from Florida State. Amari Farrell, Teo Johnson out of UCLA, and Keon Sabb from Alabama.
I don't know how Keon Sabb still has eligibility. I feel like we've been talking about Keon Sabb for like 4 years.
He seems like the
25 years old, so that's.
Yeah, he seems like the type to like sue for extra eligibility after after spending some time in a camp. Any major disagreements or any players later down the list that you want to shout out?
Yeah, I haven't watched any of those guys later down the list. Amari Farrell, though, I have heard from people at Indiana that he has had a very strong summer and spring. So I'm hoping that, because some of his early season tape is really awesome.
I was higher on him until the way he finished the year.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that we get a nice turnaround from Amari Farrell. Apparently, without going into too much detail, he was working through a lot of personal stuff as well at the end, like near the end of last season. So, yeah, I'm hoping for a huge bounce back from Amari Farrell because he's a fun player. The only, honestly, on your board compared to my board, the only big difference is that I have Jelani McDonald and Zach Lutmer swapped.
Yeah.
That's it. And they're 34 and 43rd on your board. So there's not a huge difference on your board between those two players either. On my board, they are 35 Jelani McDonald, 47. So like 12 players apart. So yeah, pretty close on my board too. But that's the only big difference that I have on my board compared to your board here.
Yeah. Some players further down the list that I haven't watched, but I will shout out as heard good things. Deshaun Spears. I've heard a lot of people like him. Peyton Bowen as well. Terry Moore. It'll be interesting to see because he was really productive 2 years ago at Duke, and then missed most of last year. Transfers to Ohio State. I think I saw that he was like their third safety on the depth chart, maybe. So I don't know if he'll be playing full time, but he's got some talent. I also Braden Alls out of the Toledo transfer to Iowa State. I've seen some of his tape. I was watching him like during the transfer portal. Wanted Indiana to pick him up, but he's got some really good ball skills. And then I know Ryan Roberts. Shout out to Ryan. I know he really likes Ty Bryant out of Kentucky. He's been texting me to watch him, but I haven't gotten around to him yet.
I love it. I love it. I've heard good things about the Vanderbilt duo of Patterson and Hurd as well.
Hurd, yeah.
Yeah. And then there was one more that I wanted to shout out that I saw as you were scrolling there. I don't. It was Zachariah Poyser was like high on Mel Kiper last year, so that might be.
I watched him for a couple weeks last year. Kind of liked him.
Yeah. Jay Green out of Stanford as well. He is a pretty traditional like dime backer box safety. Can't really run, but he's got some fun reps as well, and run support. But yeah, man, I think that's a pretty good encapsulation of the safety class through summer scouting here.
Yeah, it's a really strong class.
It's a good class. It's a good class. So yeah, next week we are prepping for week 0 because week 0 is out there next week. So, but James, that's all I've got. Do you have anything else before we get out of here?
That's all I got.
All right. Well, until next week, stick around. Big things coming. This has been another episode of the Daft on Draft podcast. See ya.